Before we begin, there's a link in the description to join the email list. Subscribers receive carefully researched ebooks, detailed videos showing real woodworking projects built step by step, and timber-focused material that isn't published publicly. It's long-form practical work shared quietly for those who want depth rather than summaries. Now let's begin. The most common structural failure in wood does not start with collapse, but with restraint. Modern builders often assume that strength comes from holding wood still. If a beam is locked tightly in place, bolted, glued, or constrained from movement, it feels solid. It looks precise. It meets drawings and tolerances. But wood does not experience strength the way concrete or steel does. Over time, that rigidity becomes stress, and stress becomes failure. Old carpenters understood something that is rarely stated directly today. Wood must be allowed to move if it is expected to last. When movement is denied, the structure may stand for years, even decades, before the consequences become visible. When they do appear, they are often blamed on weather, age, or poor timber, rather than on the deeper structural mistake that caused them. That mistake is treating wood as dimensionally stable when it never truly is. Wood is not weak when it moves, it is weak when it is forced not to. Every piece of timber responds continuously to moisture, temperature, and internal stress. It expands across the grain, contracts as it dries, and relaxes slowly under load. These changes are not defects. They are the natural behavior of a living material adapting to its environment. Old carpenters designed structures that expected this movement. Frames were assembled so that members could tighten as they dried rather than tear themselves apart. Joints were shaped to bear loads in compression and shear instead of relying on rigid fasteners to resist tension. Modern construction frequently reverses this logic. Lumber is kiln-dried to a uniform moisture content, assembled quickly and locked into place with metal connectors that do not change shape. The structure may look perfect on completion day, but the timber continues to respond to its environment long after the builder has left. The stress has nowhere to go. Traditional timber framing relied on joinery that spread loads over large bearing surfaces. Mortise and tenon joints, scarf joints, and housed connections allowed wood fibers to work together rather than against each other. As loads shifted or moisture changed, these joints could tighten, relax, or settle without tearing the structure apart. Modern connectors, often concentrate force at just a small number of points: bolts, screws, metal plates. Well, they create these hard boundaries where the wood is expected to just remain static. But as timber shrinks or swells around these points, internal stress starts to build up, and quite often cracks appear not because the wood is failing under load, but simply because it's trying to move and, well, it just can't. Old carpenters didn't avoid fasteners because they didn't have them. They steered clear of over-relying on them because, honestly, they understood what happened when wood was restrained too tightly. In pre-industrial construction, seasonal movement wasn't a surprise at all. Beams were actually expected to change shape a bit between wet and dry seasons. Floors creaked, doors shifted, and joints adjusted. Yeah, that was normal. This wasn't seen as poor craftsmanship. It was actually considered honest material behavior. Structures were designed with allowances in mind. Peg joints, for example, could rotate just a tiny bit. Frames were able to rack slightly under wind loads without breaking, and roof systems were layered so they could accommodate expansion rather than just resist it outright. In modern building culture, any movement is often treated as a defect. Floors are expected to remain silent, walls perfectly square, and joints must not show any sign of change. To get this kind of appearance, wood is actually constrained more aggressively than ever before. The irony, though, is that these efforts often end up shortening the lifespan of the structure rather than extending it. Another overlooked principle in historic construction is role separation. Structural members carried load. Secondary elements managed enclosure, weather, and finish. When movement occurred, It was absorbed by layers designed for that purpose. Modern assemblies often merge these roles. A single stud may carry load, resist shear, support finishes, and anchor cladding, all while being tightly fastened to materials with different movement characteristics. When one element moves, everything connected to it must move as well, whether it can or not. Old carpenters avoided this problem by allowing components to float relative to one another. The structural mistake modern builders make is not ignorance of tools or materials. It is forgetting that wood is an active material with its own rhythms and limits. When those rhythms are respected, timber can outlast generations. When they are suppressed, failure is only delayed. Old carpenters avoided this mistake not because they were more skilled in a technical sense, but because they paid closer attention. They observed how wood behaved over time and adjusted their methods accordingly. Understanding how timber wants to move, settle, and respond to its environment is not a historical curiosity. It is a practical skill with real consequences for longevity, repairability, and resilience. Structures fail quietly long before they fail visibly, and the causes are often embedded in decisions made at the very beginning. If you want to explore this kind of material in greater depth, including detailed explanations and project-level observations that don't fit into public videos, you can join the email list using the link in the description. That's where the longer conversations continue. Thanks for spending this time with Oldie World Timber.